Here is your complete YouTube story in a reusable writing block. Writing. The CEO offered $750,000 to calm her nonverbal son, then the janitor sat down and whispered one word. The screaming echoed through the glass walls of the 42nd floor. Employees froze at their desks. Executives stopped speaking in the middle of presentations. Assistants exchanged nervous glances as security guards rushed toward the private office suite at the end of the hall. Inside, one of the most powerful women in the country stood helpless. Vivian Cross, billionaire CEO of a global technology empire, had negotiated billion-dollar contracts, defeated competitors twice her age, and built a company from nothing into a worldwide success. But at that moment, none of her power mattered. Because her 10-year-old son, Orion, was curled on the floor, trembling uncontrollably. And nobody could reach him. Before we continue, if you believe kindness can change lives and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Wisdom Story House. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories to people around the world. The crisis had begun only 20 minutes earlier. A routine school visit had ended unexpectedly when Orion became overwhelmed by a crowded hallway, loud noises, and flashing camera lights from a local news crew covering one of Vivian's charity events. For most children, it would have been an uncomfortable moment. For Orion, it became a nightmare. Born nonverbal and diagnosed with severe autism at a young age, Orion experienced the world differently. Sounds arrived louder. Lights felt brighter. Crowds felt impossible. When overwhelmed, he withdrew completely. No words. No eye contact. No connection. The episode that day was among the worst anyone had ever seen. Teachers couldn't calm him. Specialists couldn't calm him. Therapists couldn't calm him. Now he sat on the polished office floor surrounded by concerned adults who seemed more frightened than helpful. Vivian felt her heart breaking. For years she had spent enormous amounts of money searching for solutions. The world's leading doctors. The most respected therapists. Exclusive treatment centers. Experimental programs. Private specialists flown in from different countries. Nothing created lasting change. She loved her son more than anything in existence. Yet every day she watched him trapped behind an invisible wall. And every day she wondered whether he felt lonely inside it. As another painful scream echoed through the office, tears formed in her eyes. Then, in desperation, she made an announcement that shocked everyone. She promised a reward. $750,000. To anyone who could calm her son. The number spread through the building like wildfire. Managers arrived. Psychologists arrived. Consultants arrived. Behavioral experts arrived. Everyone wanted to help. Or perhaps some wanted the money. Either way, they came. One by one they tried. Some offered toys. Others offered technology. Several attempted carefully designed therapeutic techniques. Nothing worked. Orion remained locked inside his storm. Hours passed. The afternoon sunlight stretched across the office windows. The atmosphere grew heavier. Hope slowly disappeared. Then someone unexpected appeared at the doorway. His name was Everett Hale. Most employees barely noticed him during normal days. He was 63 years old. A janitor. Quiet. Respectful. Invisible to most of the people rushing through the corporate headquarters. Every evening he cleaned conference rooms after executives left. Every morning he emptied trash cans before anyone arrived. People knew his face. Few knew his story. As Everett pushed his cleaning cart down the hallway, he heard the commotion. He saw frightened employees. He saw security guards. He saw a mother collapsing beneath the weight of heartbreak. And something deep inside him stirred. He hesitated near the entrance. Several executives looked annoyed. What could a janitor possibly do that highly trained professionals could not? But Everett wasn't looking at them. His eyes were fixed on Orion. And Orion reminded him of someone. Someone he had loved long ago. Years earlier, Everett had a younger brother named Samuel. Samuel had also been nonverbal. Back then, understanding of autism was limited. Many people misunderstood him. Some feared him. Others ignored him. But Everett never did. As children, he spent countless afternoons sitting quietly beside Samuel. No pressure. No expectations. No demands. Just presence. Over time he learned something important. Sometimes connection begins when people stop trying so hard to force it. Sometimes the loudest act of love is simple patience. Taking a slow breath, Everett approached Vivian. The exhausted mother looked at him with confusion. She had never spoken to him before. Yet there was something calm in his eyes. Something steady. Something genuine. For reasons she couldn't explain, she nodded. Everett set aside his cleaning cart. Then he walked toward Orion. Everyone expected another failed attempt. Instead, something unusual happened. Everett didn't speak. He didn't kneel directly in front of the boy. He didn't offer toys. He didn't ask questions. He simply sat down several feet away on the floor. Silence filled the room. Minutes passed. No one moved. The executives looked uncomfortable. The specialists looked skeptical. But Everett remained still. Orion continued rocking. The screaming gradually softened into quiet whimpers. Then softer still. For the first time all day, the room felt different. Not fixed. Not healed. Just different. Everett understood that fear often grows when surrounded by pressure. So he offered none. He sat quietly as though nothing needed to be solved. As though Orion was not broken. As though he deserved peace exactly as he was. The boy slowly noticed him. A brief glance. Then another. Everett did not react. He simply remained present. And then, after several long minutes, he whispered a single word. Samuel. Nobody understood. The room exchanged puzzled looks. Why had he said a random name? But Everett knew. That name carried a lifetime of love. A lifetime of patience. A lifetime of understanding. The word wasn't meant to instruct Orion. It wasn't meant to fix him. It came from a place of memory and compassion. And somehow, unbelievably, Orion stopped rocking. The room went silent. The boy turned his head. His eyes focused completely on Everett. For the first time all day. Then something extraordinary happened. Orion crawled across the floor. Slowly. Carefully. Toward the janitor. Vivian held her breath. No one dared move. When Orion reached Everett, he sat beside him. Not speaking. Not screaming. Simply sitting. The transformation felt impossible. Several employees began crying. Vivian covered her mouth with trembling hands. She had imagined this moment countless times. A moment when her son felt safe. A moment when someone reached him. And now it was happening because of a man most people barely noticed. For nearly an hour, Everett remained beside Orion. No special techniques. No expensive equipment. No miracle treatment. Just quiet understanding. As evening approached, Orion eventually rested his head against Everett's shoulder. The exhausted child finally fell asleep. The room erupted with emotion. Some employees applauded. Others openly wept. Vivian herself couldn't stop crying. Years of frustration and fear poured out all at once. When Orion was carefully carried to a nearby resting room, Vivian approached Everett. She immediately offered the promised reward. $750,000. The amount could transform anyone's life. Especially someone working as a janitor. But Everett surprised everyone again. He politely refused. The room fell silent. Vivian stared at him in disbelief. Few people reject that kind of money. Yet Everett shook his head. Because he hadn't sat beside Orion for money. He had done it because he recognized pain. He understood loneliness. He knew what it felt like when the world failed to see someone's humanity. Money wasn't why he helped. Compassion was. Vivian insisted. Everett refused again. Finally, after much discussion, he accepted only one condition. Instead of giving the money to him directly, he wanted it invested into programs supporting families with autistic children who couldn't afford treatment. Children whose parents lacked resources. Children often forgotten by society. Vivian agreed immediately. But she didn't stop there. The experience changed her forever. For years she had measured solutions through wealth and expertise. Now she realized something powerful. Human connection could never be purchased. The following months transformed both families. Vivian established a foundation in Everett's brother's memory. The Samuel Hale Foundation provided therapy grants, educational support, and community resources for thousands of struggling families. Everett became one of its advisors. Not because he had degrees or titles. But because he understood people. More importantly, he remained part of Orion's life. Week after week they spent time together. Sometimes talking wasn't necessary. Sometimes they simply sat quietly in parks watching birds. Sometimes they walked through museums during less crowded hours. Sometimes they listened to rain tapping against windows. Slowly, Orion began making progress. Not because someone forced him. Because someone accepted him. Years later, during a foundation event attended by hundreds of supporters, something unforgettable happened. Orion, now a teenager, stepped onto a stage. The audience watched with anticipation. Vivian sat in the front row, nervous and emotional. Everett sat beside her. For a long moment, Orion stood silently before the microphone. Then he looked toward Everett. And spoke. Just 2 words. "Thank you." The room erupted into tears. Vivian cried harder than she ever had before. Everett simply smiled. Not because of the words themselves. But because they represented trust. Connection. Hope. Everything that once seemed impossible. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and comment below. Stories like these remind us that kindness often comes from the people we overlook the most. Special request: comment below with the word kindness if you believe one caring person can change someone's entire life. As the applause filled the auditorium, Everett looked around at the families whose lives had been changed by a single act of compassion. He realized something profound. The world often celebrates power, wealth, and success. Yet the moments that truly transform lives are usually quiet. A hand offered in understanding. A patient heart. A person willing to sit beside another during their darkest hour. The CEO had offered $750,000 searching for a miracle. What she found instead was something far more valuable. A janitor who reminded everyone that the greatest gift in the world is not money. It is being seen. And sometimes, one whispered word is enough to change everything forever. The end.